The iron doors slammed shut behind Ryan Carter, the sound echoing like a death sentence. His wrists, bound in cold steel, ached from the tight grip of the guards. But nothing hurt more than the sight before him. Emily, his 5-year-old daughter, standing in the courtroom, her tiny hands outstretched. "Daddy!" she cried, struggling against her mother's grip. Tears streaked her cheeks. Ryan's heart shattered. He lunged forward, desperate. "Please, just one hug!" His voice cracked with agony. The judge didn't flinch. The guards yanked him back. Emily screamed, her voice piercing the silence. Ryan fought, but he was dragged away, his last glimpse of her seared into his soul. Her small body trembling, her blue eyes filled with betrayal. As the prison doors locked behind him, one thought consumed him. I have to find a way back to her, no matter what. Ryan sat in his cold prison cell, replaying the nightmare that had stolen everything. He wasn't supposed to be here. He was a cop, a good one. He had spent years protecting people, believing in justice. But justice had failed him. The memory burned. A routine drug bust. A dark alley. He and his partner Jake storming in. But something was wrong. The stash wasn't where it was supposed to be. Then sirens, flashing lights. A bag of drugs suddenly found in Ryan's patrol car. His badge ripped from his chest. His partner's eyes avoiding his. A setup. "In court," the jury whispered. His lawyer fought, but the evidence was airtight. The judge's gavel slammed. Guilty. But the worst moment? Turning to see Emily clutching her mother's dress, her tiny face confused. "Daddy," she whispered. And then he was gone. Ryan traced the shaky handwriting on the worn paper, his fingers trembling. The prison mail had arrived, and among the usual legal notices and cold rejection letters was the only thing that mattered. Emily's letter. "Daddy, I miss you. Mommy says you're bad, but I know you're good. Why won't they let me see you? I don't want presents. I just want a hug. Please come home." Tears blurred his vision. He pressed the letter to his chest, feeling its weight, her pain, her innocence, her confusion. How could he explain that the world wasn't fair? That the bad guys had won? A deep ache twisted inside him. He had fought criminals his whole life, but this helplessness was unbearable. He clenched the letter. Number? He wouldn't let them steal his daughter's faith in him. He had to see her, even if it was the last thing he ever did. Ryan sat across from his lawyer in the dim prison meeting room, his hands gripping Emily's letter like a lifeline. "I need to see her," he whispered. "Just once. Just one hug." His lawyer sighed, sliding a denial notice across the table. "The court won't allow it. They think it'll traumatize her." Ryan's chest tightened. Traumatize her? Wasn't she already suffering? He slammed his fists on the table. "She's 5. She thinks I abandoned her. How is that fair?" His voice, the warden stood at the door, arms crossed, smirking. "Convicts don't get special privileges." Ryan's blood boiled. He had spent years upholding the law, protecting families, only to be treated like this. As the guards dragged him back to his cell, one thought consumed him. If the system won't let me see my daughter, I'll find another way. Ryan sat on his hard prison cot, rage and helplessness twisting inside him. The walls felt tighter, the air heavier. He had to see Emily, but how? The system had slammed every door in his face. That night, as the prison dimmed into eerie silence, a shadow stopped outside his cell. Officer Daniels, one of the guards, stood there, his face unreadable. "You don't deserve this," Daniels whispered, glancing around. "I know you were set up." Ryan's breath caught. He had learned not to trust anyone in here, but something in Daniels's eyes, guilt maybe, made him listen. "She's waiting for you, you know," Daniels murmured. "Your little girl. She keeps asking." Ryan's throat tightened. His fists clenched. "Then help me," he whispered back, desperation dripping from every word. Daniels hesitated, then leaned in. "There might be a way, but it's dangerous." Ryan's heart pounded. He didn't care. The moment the riot broke out, Ryan knew it was his chance. The air thickened with chaos, screams, the sound of fists against flesh, the wail of sirens. But Ryan wasn't focused on the violence around him. His mind was set on one thing. Emily. Daniels appeared in a blur, his hand on the bars. "This is it," he said, his voice low. "I can get you to the visitors area, but you've got to move now." Ryan's heart raced. He didn't hesitate. As the riot intensified, he sprinted through the dark corridors, weaving past the confusion. His breath came in short bursts, and every step felt like a lifetime. The sound of boots chasing him was drowned by his pounding heart. He turned the corner and saw it, Emily standing just beyond the gates, her little face searching for him. But then a voice shouted, "Too late!" Ryan's heart soared when he saw Emily through the prison gates, her small face illuminated by the harsh lights. She was waiting for him, her eyes scanning the crowd, hope flickering in them like a fragile flame. For the first time in years, he felt close to the life he lost. But as he rushed forward, the sound of running footsteps behind him shattered the moment. "Stop!" a guard shouted, his voice commanding. Ryan's body froze. The sudden realization hit him. Was this a trap? Was he being led into a final confrontation? The guards closed in fast, their weapons drawn. Ryan's blood ran cold. He had come this far, pushed through every obstacle, only to be stopped now? Emily's face was just beyond the fence, but the gap between them was closing. Time was running out. Ryan took a step forward, ready to risk everything. As the guards closed in, Ryan's mind raced. He was seconds away from being dragged back into the hell he had just escaped. But then, out of nowhere, a voice pierced through the chaos. "Wait!" It was Officer Daniels, panting, his hands raised. "You can't arrest him. I know the truth." Ryan's chest tightened. Daniels? What was he talking about? The guards hesitated, eyes shifting between Ryan and Daniels. "What do you mean?" one of them barked. Daniels took a step forward, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "Ryan was framed. I was there the night it happened. The evidence, it was planted. I saw it." The room fell silent. Ryan couldn't believe what he was hearing. Daniels had the power to change everything, but would he risk everything for him? The truth was out there, but now Ryan needed to decide. Trust it or walk away. Ryan stood in the courtroom, his hands trembling. His heart pounded in his chest as he faced the judge, the prosecutor, and most terrifying of all, his daughter's mother, who sat with a cold expression, her eyes filled with disbelief. Daniels had spoken the truth, but it was up to the court to believe it. Ryan could feel the weight of every gaze on him. The stakes were higher than ever. The prosecutor stood, pointing at Ryan with a look of contempt. "This man is a criminal," he sneered. "He does not deserve mercy, not after what he did." Ryan's mind raced, remembering everything he had lost. The years in prison, the pain in Emily's eyes. But he wasn't just fighting for his freedom anymore. He was fighting for her, for their future. His lawyer stood, finally speaking up, her voice a quiet but steady beacon. "Your Honor, the truth has been hidden long enough." Ryan's breath caught in his throat as the judge's gavel fell. Silence filled the room, an unbearable stillness that stretched on for what felt like eternity. His eyes flicked to Emily's mother, who sat with her arms crossed, eyes filled with defiance. But all Ryan could focus on was Emily, her face visible in the courtroom gallery. Her wide eyes were filled with a mixture of hope and fear. This was it. His last chance. The judge leaned forward, his voice calm but unwavering. "Ryan Carter, you have been wronged, but the system is not perfect. We will now reevaluate the case with new evidence." The room buzzed with murmurs. For the first time in years, Ryan felt a sliver of hope. He looked at Emily. This isn't the end. This is just the beginning. Will he finally be free to hold his daughter again? Stay tuned to see what happens next.